Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, Fabulites. This is Angela with another edition of Notes on the Newsfeed, where I read you headlines and my thoughts on the headlines. It's just my thoughts. It's not an in-depth analysis, or I haven't done any serious research. I might have read the article. I might have Googled it. I might have skimmed the article. I might have just read the paragraph after the headline, or I might have just read the headline. But you can find links to the actual articles that these headlines are connected with on my Twitter feed, BeFabulousU. BeFabulous. When I get a chance, I'm going to shoot the link into the description box. And that's what I got. So, let's go! Because you know the news feed stuff just keep on showing up on my news feed. Rio's, that's like Rio in Brazil. Rio de Janeiro. Rio's Valongo slave wharf becomes UNESCO heritage site. So, UNESCO is kind of like in your community or in your town or in your city. I don't know if you have places that have been designated as historically significant. And now there are different, there's like a hierarchy of historical significance designation. So like the lowest is like, you know, I might be like, that house is important to me because my mama grew up there. But your city could designate certain sites to be historically significant. Your state could designate certain sites to be historically significant. And then there's a national register of historic sites where the government, the federal government, has designated certain sites to be historically significant. And then this UNESCO thing, it's like, it's international. So throughout the world, you can find UNESCO sites that are considered to be historically significant. I think we have a couple here in Michigan, because the first time that I learned about it, I was doing a Underground Railroad tour in Detroit, and that's where I learned about this hierarchy. So y'all might already know about it. I might be preaching to the choir. Y'all probably already know it. But anyway, and then in Brazil, I think that 40% of the enslaved Africans that were brought to the New World came in through Brazil. Now, Brazil was a place where a lot of people would be, you know, skinny and hungry and jacked up, and they would bring in, coming in through Brazil, they would like try to fatten us up and all of this other stuff. So Brazil was a big site, and Brazil remains a place where there is a lot of obvious African ancestry, and some other places where there were a lot of Africans imported. Brazil is one of those places too where they, after the fact, they tried to import a lot of Europeans or invite Europeans to move here to whiten up the nation. And you know, and usually when you see things about Brazil, they the whitest of the white. You know, you wouldn't hardly know, except for now we have a little more conscious of it, that there were black people there. But that's like in places like Mexico and other places in the world. There were a lot of enslaved Africans that were taken there as well. But a lot of them, like in Mexico, they're like a lot of the people are in communities by them, like isolated. So you wouldn't necessarily see a lot of African descendant Mexicans in Mexico City, but you might see them on one of the coast. I can't remember. But they're not as prevalent, and they've been, either diluted or isolated in the society. So it's like they almost don't exist, even if you're there, unless you go to the right places. Whereas in Brazil, when you're not there, you might not know about black and brown folks. But when you go there, you be like, oh, shoot, it's a lot of black and brown folks, particularly in some places. But anyway, so the Valongo slave wharf was a place where a lot of us came, you know, so we might have come there, and we might have been separated from our brothers and sisters there. And one brother might have gone to the United States, another sister might have gone to Cuba, another sister might have stayed in Brazil. We don't know how all of that worked. So anyway, one of my DNA relatives was like, what did they say? It was something that was very kind of disturbing to me. Oh, they like the term, I think I might be misunderstanding because I was so traumatized to hear it. They like the term Negro because it's unique to the United States. And, then we're not Haitian or Jamaican or anything like that. I'm like, shit, some of my people, I don't know where my people, we were moved at will by other people. So people could be anywhere. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. Oh, I already did this. Paris flooding. Record rain. Oh, and this site it was a wharf, but they had built over it, and it was uncovered because somebody was trying to do something like build a garage or something. They found a whole bunch of dead bodies because I guess when they brought us in, those of us that they couldn't make healthy enough to sell or who died, they just throw us in this, I don't know if it was like a mass, I don't know how, I mean, because we weren't treated like humans, so I'm assuming that it was not a situation with a lot of dignity or reverence, you know, for our humanity. So I don't know. But they uncovered it trying to make a garage, and so now it's become this designation, internationally designated site of historical significance. So, for example, Auschwitz, I think, has a UNESCO designation. But anyway, we'll have to look up UNESCO, won't we? Paris flooding. Record rainfall hits French capital. Okay. This Yamasaki office building is going up for auction. I think I already talked about that, didn't I? Yeah. Guyana inmate escapes. Oh, Guyana inmates escape as prison burns. I don't know why I'm so fascinated with prisons. I've made this link in my head between prisoners and enslaved Africans because we were prisoners. We were on prison work camps, and, you know, people held us captive. They held us prisoner. We were held against our will. But anyway, and I think about, like, they're locked up in this prison, and if a fire comes, how do they get out? Like, you know, it's sort of like, you know, in any building, there are fire safety, or there should be, like, different, like, in the case of a fire, you have to be able to get out, or you should be able to get out. So you can't have certain doors locked. I mean, it has to be relatively easy access so that people can quickly evacuate in the event of a fire. But in a prison, they probably don't have, you know, I guess the guards can get out. But, so, I guess I'm glad the inmates escaped because they're human beings. I don't know. And then in my head, I feel like, oh my gosh, they're inmates, they're criminals. African tech hubs struggle for sustainability while revolutionizing startup culture. That's coming off of African Insider. California teen wins lottery twice in 1 week, totaling $655,555. And it was scratch-off tickets. I don't play the lottery. But for some reason, I've always had this feeling that I was going to, like, win this big, like, lump sum of money in the lottery. But I don't really play the lottery. So it was like, I guess I just figure I'm going to get this feeling, like, go get you a scratch-off ticket today. I think a teenager, that must mean they're 19, 18, something like that. So anyway, it was one winning was like 555,000, and then the other was 100,000. So I think the young woman said she was nervous and she was going to buy a car. Lord, let's send a prayer out for her for wisdom in this, you know, and being a great steward of this blessing, and that people will come around her who will help her and bless her and support her, and that this lottery winning can be a blessing for her and for her family moving forward. You know what I mean? Because they sure know how to transfer wealth from the poor and the don't know right back to the wealthy. Rising number of discrimination lawsuits highlights the lack of diversity in media. So media is supposed to be so neutral, and, you know, we're just telling the story as it is, but it's basically white men telling the story from their perspective. Because we have this propaganda or this idea or this desire to pretend that a reporter is just reporting the facts as they are. But of course, we're human, so we're always in the mix, even if we want to pretend that we aren't. We are. Allowing felons to vote could change American politics. And again, we were talking about enslaved Africans and the connection between enslaved Africans and prisoners. And, you know, especially in this country, we know that, well, maybe you don't know, but some, you know, it's a known fact to many that when black folks were given our freedom, that there was the exception of, you know, you can't enslave anyone unless they're a criminal. And then if they're a criminal, you can enslave them. And so then all of a sudden after that, and I don't even know why that was a caveat in the law in the first place, except for just this. Then all of a sudden after that, it's like, oh my God, I see a black man on the street and he's a criminal because he's standing on the street. Oh my God, I see a black man and he's a criminal because he's walking through town and he doesn't have a job. Oh my God. So then all of these laws came into place to criminalize black people so that they could get them back in the system and work them for free. And so they had this whole kind of big labor system. And that continues to me in a lot of ways. Like, I think that they, you know, not only do people work who are in that system, do they get work and get paid little or nothing for their work. And then corporations use that labor to make money. It's the same system as the enslavement system. You know, the governments make money. Like, oh, for every prisoner you have in jail, it's kind of like with schools. For every student you have enrolled, and when we do the count, you get $50, $100, $3,000 from the city, state, whatever. For every prisoner you have in jail, the government or whoever, is it the government? Who be giving money? Yeah, I need to do some more research on that, because I just have this sense that it's to their advantage to keep people in for an extra day because they get extra money for each extra, you know, all the time that they keep people in. But I don't know. I've never really thought deeply about it. But another thing is that you disenfranchise people. So then once they go to jail, if they're considered felons, then they're not allowed to vote in a lot of places. And so that means you have this disproportionately large number of black and brown people who are in the system, a disproportionately large number of black and brown people who are considered felons, and a disproportionately large number of black and brown people who aren't able to vote. And then you go to, okay, so supposedly you did this crime, you go to jail, you do your time, and then after you do your time, you're not reintegrated into society. Because I have questions about this whole society thing. But then you still can't be a regular citizen. You did the crime, you did the time, but we never forgive your ass. That's like, you know, it's some bull. It's just a way to me to keep the numbers low of black and brown people who vote. Complaint alleges Little Rock police chief discriminated against black officers, passed them up for promotions. What? The Little Rock people, the police people are discriminating against black people? I mean, that never happens in this country. That's just shocking. Not. All right, so that's another edition of Notes on the Newsfeed. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm like way behind. You know how when you go out of time, you know how we just behind, but we catching up. We not behind, we ahead of the curve. We just so far ahead, it seemed like we behind. You know what I want you to do today, and always in this moment, in this hour, I want you to be you, be fabulous, and be fabulous you. Peace.